Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for this Ivanti demo webinar. Today we're going to be talking about Better Together, Unified Endpoint Management, and Mobile Threat Defense. A couple of housekeeping items before we get into it. We are going to be sending out the recording of this presentation afterwards. So if you would like to rewatch it again or share it with a colleague, you're more than welcome to do so. You will have that recording. You can also download additional resources on your On24 dashboard. We do have relevant or related materials to this demo that will be available to you. We're also going to be doing a Q&A at the very end, so feel free to drop your questions into the Q&A bucket there, and we'll be sure to address those at the very end of the presentation. If we cannot get to your question, or if it's a question that we don't have an answer to, we will be sure to reach out to you individually to follow up. This session is going to be about 30 minutes, so we're going to be all spending the next 30 minutes together. And if you have any additional questions or any sort of technical questions, you can drop those into the Q&A, or you can also drop them into the chat. I'm pleased to present our presenters today. We have Scott Erickson. He is a Senior Technical Product Marketing Manager at Ivanti. And Raul Nadal. He's also a Senior Technical Product Marketing Manager at Ivanti. They're going to be taking you through a couple different demo scenarios from different perspectives and are able to provide different value propositions and different use cases for you during this time. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to drop those in and we will address those at the end. Scott, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. So first off, obviously, phishing is a major risk to corporate networks. There are a lot of breaches that happen because credentials are handed over by an end user without them realizing they just input something into a fake site. What is concerning is that about half of users are not concerned about their security on mobile devices. This means that they aren't paying close attention to phishing attempts. They can be hard to spot, but there are always little clues. How a URL is formatted, meaning the supposed company name is in the host name of the FQDN rather than the domain name, links that go to different locations than they're labeled text, bad certificates, and half of users not being concerned creates a very ripe environment for phishing attacks. With UEM only, while there are some very key aspects to the solution that can secure mobile devices, there will always be the human element that needs to be dealt with. Phishing protection is a key part of this, and this is one of the most important additions that MTD brings. So first, we're going to take a look at the UEM console. So when we take a look at the dashboard, because the MTD functionality is directly built into the UEM client, the admin is able to enable the phishing protection features for all enrolled UEM devices. Here we see the MTD anti-phishing. It's going to show you how many users it's enabled and not enabled for. So from an admin's perspective, you have a clear view of how many of your UEM users currently have the phishing protection. The policies can be set up through user groups, device groups, stuff like that. Here we see all the users. You can define user groups to apply these policies to. And then all those policies can then automatically be pushed to the actual devices. Here we see the devices that are being managed through UEM, and then again, device groups that you can define to apply policies to. As an admin, you can push enterprise applications pretty easily so that as your end users are enrolled in these platforms, you have the ability to push specific enterprise applications for their use, and then you can manage access to those applications through the policies. If we look at some of the configurations, first thing we're going to look at is the anti-phishing. So one thing that anti-phishing is managed with is what is called secure DNS. Secure DNS is a key aspect to Ivanti Neurons for MTD. Normally a device, to have phishing protection, the device needs to send the content, the URL, through some type of VPN or proxy for analysis. With secure DNS, the DNS lookup itself is what is used to manage whether or not a device is able to access the site. So the DNS server that is being used in secure DNS knows which sites are phishing, and then it can automatically block resolution of those sites without using some type of VPN or proxy to transfer that information to the host solution for analysis. If we look at policies, one unique aspect to the MTD solution is the tiered compliance. So you see down here we have threat level low, medium, high. Tiered compliance means that when a threat is found, depending on the severity of the threat, the response can take numerous steps. So first, you can push a notification saying, hey, here's a threat, it needs to be dealt with. Some time later, you can elevate that or escalate that to a different response. So here, wait 6 hours, send another notification. If it's not dealt with then you could do things like quarantine the device or even retire the device. So you have the ability to not simply immediately react to all threats, but give the user the ability to deal with them in a timely fashion as they can. So this really helps prevent maybe if they're using it to do something that they may not be, that you don't want them to do, they have some amount of time before you actually maybe kick them off the network or kick them off corporate applications or something like that. And then lastly, we have GDPR profiles. And this allows the admin to obfuscate personal details, which is important in a BYOD environment. So obviously this is built for GDPR compliance, but it could be used in other aspects, other regulatory environments and stuff like that. So as an admin, you can hide those PIM detail or PII details from the log files to help keep privacy in certain environments, whether it's GDPR or other regulatory environments. And next, we are going to hand it over to Raul to show you some on-device demos.
Okay, so now let's show what the end users will see on the device side. So in this case, we're going to register a device, but the device can be already registered into Ivanti Neurons for MDM. So because what we are going to demonstrate is that there is no requirement on the interaction from the user side and so on to enable the product itself. The product is made to protect on the 4 layers, which is application, device, and network, and anti-phishing. And by default, DNA, the DNA piece is enabled without any interaction. So the device is almost registered. And once that we get the UEM client, we will see how it is going to be enabled seamlessly. Now, just a little appointment. If you have any extension, such as an ID access management, IDP, and so on, able to consume the device posture from the UEM, this will extend the device posture that we are going to provide. So this is our UEM client, which is already registered. And as we can see right here, there is nothing to do, and the product is already enabled, ensuring that we get the 100% adoption. Now, let's talk about the PCP, which is phishing and content protection. In this case, we use, as Scott already mentioned, secure DNS in order to filter and block unauthorized or risky traffic. So in the case of the iOS, the user will need to perform an action to enable it. In the case of Android devices, this step is transparent. So it is pretty clear, and the administrator can also force the user to enable it because it requires this user interaction as a condition before to access the corporate services such as email and so on. The user will need to go to the iOS settings application, general, VPN and management, select DNS, and select the option of Ivanti Neurons for MTD, and that's it. Now the PCP portion is also enabled. So now that the anti-phishing feature is enabled, let's try to test it. In this case, we are going to make a distinction between what we call risky sites to unauthorized content, which are 2 different settings within the same thing. The first thing is we are going to open a risky link, which can come from email, SMS, or any other application, including a browser, as you can see. And as soon as the site is detected, the product is going to block it and is going to inform the user. To protect the privacy of the user, in this case, the administrator is going to get insights about the threat, but only the user is going to get the real URL that has triggered the threat. This is good because this way you protect the privacy from the user and also you prevent false positives. If we try to get on any other risky link, let's say this one that we are going to open from our laboratory, it is going to be the same. Now, you will find that in some cases, for example, you are browsing and you load a site, which is what we're going to show you right now. And the site, firstly, is not triggering any alert. But as you move within the site, you will get some alerts and parts of the site will be blocked. This is because not all sites are risky or well known as risky. And in those cases, when maybe it's just little pieces within the site where the user shouldn't click, let's say, the product is flexible enough to just block those sites. In this case, as you see, the site is still open, but the solution is only blocking those pieces where they have the unauthorized content or also risky to content. Unauthorized content means that the administrators can also block content based on categories that comes pre-configured, such as offensive, war, things like that. And also can add up to 100 URLs in addition to all those categories that comes pre-configured to complete that as an allow list or as a deny list. So it is quite flexible in that matter. Now let's talk about network threat protection or network threat layer attacks. So the most typical risk on the networks is intersection attacks, such as man in the middle, where the hackers try to force your device into connecting to a rogue Wi-Fi access point to intercept the traffic or even to exfiltrate data. In this case, we are doing that intentionally, but the product has going to detect that we have connected into this rogue Wi-Fi access point. And the first line of defense that is going to apply is to block the access to the services. This is something that happens directly on local, and this is what you see as a user as soon as the threat is detected. So this is, let's say, kind of two parts of remediation. First one is to block the access from the device into applications that connects to internal services, as we are going to show right now. But once that the client syncs to the Neurons for MTD console and to the Neurons for MDM consoles, the server is going to apply an additional remediation action, which may come from, as Scott mentioned, something tired, such as I detect, I block right now, and then I wait a little bit more, and then I apply further actions up to the limit configured by the administrator, such as quarantine, or directly remove or retire the device from the system. If we go back right now, we will see that the applications are no longer there because that's the other way to protect at rest the information. For sure, once that the threat is no longer happening, in this case, because we are no longer connected into the rogue Wi-Fi access point, we recover the access to the applications and services. Now let's go into the application protection. So we're going to use test flight as an example of a way to install an application that can be risky. Why? Because some applications on test flight may be betas that have never been on the Apple Store. This means that Apple has never really assessed the security on those applications, and you can actually very easily install them, even overriding an MDM restriction. In this case, the system is going to detect it and is going, once again, to apply the kind of remediation configured by the administrator, which can go from, once again, from notification into blocking into quarantine or something else if the user denies. You should never forget about all the restrictions that you can apply directly to protect these kind of things from the UEM side. But it's important to know that you also have this level of protection in case of real risky applications. For sure, if other threats will happen, the system will detect them outside if they come from an application or not. Now, finally, to close the security circle, we should consider that protecting devices is just a piece of the picture, but you would need to complete it with a strong discovery service able to detect devices and compare them with the devices that are managed within your networks and within your systems. And this way, suspicious devices that can be vulnerable and hackers can use them to break into your servers could get detected, and you will cover and close the gap into this security picture that we are providing. And that's what we wanted to show. Hand over to you, Melissa.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Raul, for that. Couple of takeaways or resources, rather. These are going to be some URLs where you can get some additional information about what Scott and Raul covered today. Again, we will be providing the recording of this demo to you shortly after today. We're also going to have a part 2 of this demo coming sometime in April, so be on the lookout for that. More information to come there. We did get a couple of questions into the chat here. So Scott, Raul, I'm just going to ask the question, then either of you can go ahead and answer it. This first one here is from Michelle. As an admin, if I see MTD anti-phishing is not enabled on some devices, what actions can I take to remedy that from the admin side?
Yeah, that's a good question. So you can actually perform, let's say, tier compliance as well on that, because as you can detect when a device doesn't have anti-phishing enabled, you can force the user first notifying, you can block him from, prevent him from connecting to the services such as email and so on. You can remove the corporate applications, and you can even automatically retire the device from the system.
Wonderful. This next one's from Scott. Can mobile devices belong to more than one group? And if so, how does rules apply across those groups if there is a rule conflict?
Well, actually, when you, the way that this product works, let's say that the activation code that you are going to push to a group of devices, it's the one that is going to put those devices inside of a specific group. This means that there is no way for you to fall into 2 different groups. But if that would be the case, as usual on those technologies, the most restrictive will apply.
And then Mike asks, are there any plans or roadmap to bring secure DNS to Android?
Yeah, and actually this is part of where we are working on. Right now, it requires Ivanti tunnel to perform the same task, but we are working to base that also on secure DNS on that.
Great, we have just a few more here. This is from Tyler. What happens if a user deletes the MDM profile, and are company or private apps automatically removed from the device?
Yeah, actually, one of the recommended deployments is always that if the user, because you don't have the control to prevent him from remove the MDM profile, it automatically will pull all the corporate applications, including the UEM client and any other corporate application. So it's like if you remove the MDM profile, all the corporate data will fly away from your device. There is nothing left to protect but the device itself. Yeah.
And then another Mike, with secure DNS enabled, is it possible to whitelist sites or categories?
Yeah, the same way that we can apply or not the unauthorized content with those pre-configured categories, every administrator can add up to 100 URLs manually to complete what is already pre-configured by the product itself.
And I think we just have a few more here. This is from Mary. Is it possible to provide a custom block page with my company's logo?
That's a good question, because right now, as you have seen, we are just blocking the site itself, but without making any redirection. It's a good idea. We will make note of that to check with the product manager. You can also imagine that this is our first version of the product itself, so everything will get better. eventually, but this is a good one.
And then finally from Ryan, what if the user already has a malicious Wi-Fi network saved before installing the profile? Will it prevent it from connecting to a network that is already saved?
It all depends on the way that you configure, because, for example, when you push a managed Wi-Fi connection, you can force the device to connect to that Wi-Fi if it is present instead of any other. But when you are outside of the range of those Wi-Fis, it is not a problem, because it only means that maybe in the past I connected and nothing happened, but now that I have the product enabled, next time that I try to connect to this risky network, the product will detect that it's risky and will apply the remediation, as we have seen with the rogue Wi-Fi IP. So it's not really a problem, because it's going to detect and it's going to remediate, even if it is previously safe into the device.
Great, thank you, Raul. Those are all the questions that I've seen come in. If anybody has any additional questions, go ahead and put them into the Q&A box for these last few minutes here. Otherwise, we can move on. And I just want to thank everybody for coming out again today to join us for this demo webinar. If you have any questions that you think of after this, go ahead and reach out to our team or to the team here. We're happy to answer any of those at any time. We can also provide a custom demo webinar for your organizational use cases if that is something that you would like to see. Otherwise, we will have a follow-on or a part 2 of this webinar coming up here very soon, so keep your eyes out for that. And then we will be sending out this recording to you shortly. Thank you all so much for coming today. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.